Hey everyone, George here. What is going on, everyone? And I thought I'd come back today and discuss with you that I had promised my top 10 Disneyland attractions. I know I released a video, I believe it was last week, about my top 10 Walt Disney World attractions. And I promised I'd do Disneyland, so I thought, what the heck, let's do Disneyland. So again, just like with Walt Disney World, I'm not going in any type of order. I know I have done Splash Mountain and Flight of Passage as my number one because I wanted to specifically save that as my number one because that's just how I personally feel. So let's get into it. Number 10, I will say, believe it or not, this was also part of my Walt Disney World list, is Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. Now, if I had to compare the two, I would choose Disneyland's over Walt Disney World. Um, I enjoy the ride. It's sort of the same ride, but there are some implements um, within the ride that are completely different than the other. Disneyland has more technological um, wizardry, so to speak. I love like in the mine with like the explosions and everything. It is so cool. So yeah, I still have to stick with Big Thunder as part of my top 10 at Disneyland. But if I had to pick or choose, I would choose Disneyland's over Walt Disney World's. Number 9 is Space Mountain, and I don't recall if Space Mountain was part of my top 10 at Walt Disney World. I have to go back and see. Because, as I said, with me, I enjoy all of the attractions at the Disney parks. It's very hard for me to choose what I prefer. And my list keeps changing as Disney keeps adding more things. But I don't believe it is. And the reason why is, again, I enjoy Disneyland's Space Mountain more than Walt Disney World. I love how Disneyland has the two-seater next to each other instead of front to back. I love how you can get into the seats better. Walt Disney World is very low and more cramped. And for me, Disneyland's ride system is much smoother than Walt Disney World's. You definitely have to um, possibly need a chiropractor to ride Walt Disney World after you ride Walt Disney World's, but it's still a great ride regardless. But again, I would choose Disneyland's over Walt Disney World's. Number 8, I would have to say. Now, keep in mind too, I'm also doing both Disneyland Park and Disney California Adventure Park. This ties into the Disneyland Resort. So coming in at number 8 would have to be Grizzly River Run. Now, again, for me, Grizzly River Run is like further down on the list if I was to put them in order, but I'm not. So I actually enjoy Grizzly River Run more than Cali River Rapids at Animal Kingdom. I love how there's a double drop and in Grizzly. I love the sound effects. I love the geyser at the end that there is a possibility you may get wet. Um, and I just love the storyline. I love the feel because it where Grizzly River Run is located in the park, it definitely gives you that California feel of how the park originated for it to feel like all of the aspects of the state of California. So I love Grizzly River Run. Number 7 would be staying in uh, California Adventure would be the Incredicoaster. This is a ride that was rethemed. It originally was California Screamin', which opened with the park back in 2000, and it's just been like a typical type of boardwalk, um, pier roller coaster. A steel roller coaster with a loop and everything. There was really no theme to it, but I loved the ride regardless. I'm a thrill junkie. I love roller coasters, so I mean that was right up my alley to begin with. But now that they transformed Paradise Pier into Pixar Pier, they rethemed the roller coaster to The Incredibles, and I just love the storyline of, while we're in the coaster, we're trying to chase Jack Jack and try to catch him along with the Incredibles as they try to use their powers to get him back and everything. And it's just great. It's fun. And I also recommend that if you are to ride the Incredicoaster, it is much better at night. The special effects, the lighting, if you have the opportunity to ride it at night, I highly recommend it. Going on to number 7, would have to be going back over to Disneyland, would be the Matterhorn. Now, the Matterhorn is very unique to Disneyland because it's one of a kind. You will not find the Matterhorn anywhere else. It was Walt's idea to kind of stick it right in between Tomorrowland and Fantasyland, and a lot of the Imagineers didn't really know what to think of it, and he said, nope, trust me, it'll work. And sure enough, it did. It's been there since 1959, and it's still going. It's still a classic. It's the first steel tubular track. That's a tongue twister. Try saying that 3 times fast. Of its kind, with the bobsled cars, and it's been updated several times, like with new bobsled cars, and the Abominable Snowmans got updated too. They're more fluid in animation, so to speak, where they are very lifelike, and you run into several of the animatronics throughout the ride. Mind you, now it is very gritty and bumpy, so it definitely compares to Walt Disney World's Space Mountain, but it's still a ride. It's classic. It's original to Disneyland, and it's a must-do for me. Number 6 would be probably, I would say, staying in Disneyland. I was going to say this would probably be my number 1, but of how I did with Walt Disney World, I'll probably just say it's Indiana Jones Adventure. As I said, that is my number 1, but I'm just going to say it for number 6. It has the ride system at Dinosaur, which is at Animal Kingdom. It has the same layout, just different storyline. It's basically a different skin. I would actually have to say it's one of my favorite attractions in the resort and at Disneyland Park. It's became a tradition that it has become the first ride I go to when I enter the park. So yeah, I mean, there's really nothing more to say. I mean, who doesn't love Indiana Jones? And then the type of ride system, as I said, is like Dinosaur, and it's a motion sensor vehicle where it feels like you're going over rocks and you're bumping into things, but really the vehicle is just staying in a straight path on the track. So definitely Indiana Jones. As I said, it's my number 1, but I'll just say it as putting it at number 6, if that makes sense. Number 5 would have to be, going right along. Okay, I know a lot of people are probably thinking, why, but I'll explain why. Would have to be It's a Small World. Now, the reason why is because this is the original classic It's a Small World that was part of the 1964 New York World's Fair, that it was introduced for the UNICEF Children of the World pavilion. And I love how the ride starts out outside when you board your boat, and it goes in to the building and everything, and then it circles around to come back outside. There are some differences between the Disneyland and the Walt Disney World version, but I mean, just because it was the classic original, that Walt was part of the concept of it, so that's why it made my top 10. Number 4 would have to be Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. I do know a lot of people don't know, who Mr. Toad is or what the ride is, because, kids nowadays, they don't really pay attention to the Wind in the Willow story. But you can find it on Disney Plus. It's part of the Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. So if you haven't seen it, watch it. It's a really good story. But as far as the ride goes, you basically board Mr. Toad's automobile, and you go through the story along with him, and it's a fun little ride. I mean, there's not like a whole lot of thrill to it, nor a lot of technological uh, technology, so to speak. But it is a classic attraction. Walt Disney World used to have it, but it became the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, which a fun little fact that if you ride Winnie the Pooh, as you're going through a scene, if you look to the left, I think it's like the second or third scene, you can see a picture of Mr. Toad handing over the deed to Owl. So it's sort of like a little Easter egg that the ride it transitioned from Mr. Toad to Winnie the Pooh. So it's no longer at Walt Disney World. So if you want to ride Mr. Toad, you have to go to Disneyland. Going down to number 4, staying in Fantasyland, I would have to say it's Pinocchio's Daring Journey. Only for the fact of that, again, it's only at Disneyland. You can't get it at Disney World or anything. It's a fun little dark ride. It goes through the story of Pinocchio. And I'm a big fan of Pinocchio. I always have. It's one of my top 10 Disney animated movies, which I am probably going to do another top 10, and it'll be for my favorite animated movies, and Pinocchio will be part of it. Because as far as my favorite Disney character of all time is Jiminy Cricket, so that pretty much says it all. And the "When You Wish Upon a Star" song has become Disney's anthem, so to speak, for its movies, and you could hear it. I mean, the cruise ships, when they, blow the horn, it plays "When You Wish Upon a Star." So, but as far as the attraction goes, again, it's a family style ride. It's a dark ride. Anyone can go on it, and it's just like one of those rides where, if you're trying to fill out your day and just do something calm and fun, then I definitely say Pinocchio's Daring Journey. Number 3 would have to be going back over to Disney's California Adventure would be Soarin'. And the reason why I pick Soarin' for Disneyland and not for Walt Disney World, it was an honorable mention, I believe, but it didn't make my top 10, that it was the original Soarin' that started. Before it went to Epcot, it was in high demand because it was so popular at Disneyland. And as far as I know, that Disneyland's is the only one that's kind of going back and forth right now with the original Soarin' over California and Soarin' over the world. So there are different times, depending on like when you go during the season, that you can get either one or the other. I personally feel that they should offer both. So you enter one line for Soarin' around the world or Soarin' over California, whichever one you prefer, or both. So that leaves, I'm trying to remember the number I'm on. Am I on number 3? I think I'm on number 3. So if I do an extra one, I apologize. I think that was my number 4. I think I'm on number 3. I would have to say, trying to go through all the rides and attractions, I'd have to honestly probably say going back to Fantasy. The one thing that Disneyland has is in Fantasyland a slew full of dark rides, which are just like classic dark rides. I mean, it's not the best in the technology as far as like nowadays, but they're just so classic that you can like hit one after the other. You can go on Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, Pinocchio's Daring Journey, Peter Pan's Flight, and honestly, the next one on my list is Snow White's Scary Adventures. It used to be at Walt Disney World as well, but that transitioned into Princess Fairy Tale Hall because they were adding the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. But the classic ride is still at Disneyland. So along like with Pinocchio's Daring Journey, it takes you through like the story of Snow White, more so on the scary parts of her adventure, thus Snow White's Scary Adventures. Number 2, and again, I apologize if I already had a number 3, so there might be 2 number 3s on this. So my number 2 would have to be I would have to say the Haunted Mansion. Now, I know probably what you're all thinking. The last video I did for my top 10 of Walt Disney World, the Haunted Mansion wasn't even on my list. And that is because I was saving it specifically for Disneyland. Um, because if I had to pick and choose, they're both kind of the same. I like more so the layout design of that like New Orleans style old home rather than the Gothic style at Walt Disney World. That's just my personal opinion. But the ride layout is pretty much the same. But the one thing that Disneyland's Haunted Mansion does that Walt Disney World doesn't is they have the holiday overlay of the Nightmare Before Christmas. I personally haven't experienced it yet, but that is something on my Disney bucket list that I would eventually like to uh, experience. And I do know why Walt Disney World doesn't do it is because due to like the tourism that they constantly have to have the ride up and running, constantly, it would be down for X amount of time, and Disneyland could afford to do that because it's more of a locals park rather than a tourist destination. So number two would be the Haunted Mansion. Now my number one, as I said, this isn't in any order. My number one would probably be, as I said, Indiana Jones, but I'm just running down the list of what I can come up in my mind. However, this would probably have to be my number two if I was to put them in order, and it would be Pirates of the Caribbean. Now, again, this didn't make my Walt Disney World list, and the reason why is unlike the Haunted Mansion, Pirates is completely and utterly different at both resorts, and Disneyland takes the trophy on that one. You're getting a full storyline. The ride is much longer. I love, don't get me wrong, I love the queue line at Walt Disney World, but if you ride Disneyland's version and then Walt Disney World, you can see the difference, and it basically cuts almost like 5 or 6 minutes of the ride, possibly even more. I mean, I haven't really counted like the length of time of the ride, but yeah, so that is my top 10. As I said, Pirates is probably, if I was to do it in order, it would probably be Indiana Jones 1, Pirates 2, Haunted Mansion 3, as far as, being accurate of my top 10. But that is my top 10 favorite Disneyland Resort attractions, and as I promised you, so now you have both. And as I said, I'll probably have to do an update on this because as the resorts grow and change, so does my list. So I thank you for joining me. Please like and subscribe, hit that notification icon, and remember, stay healthy, stay safe, stay Disney. Bye everybody.